And it's the last edition for the week. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams.
And I'm Chimeze Obi. Well, thank you for joining us. We kick off with global oil market update as oil prices rose this morning, heading for a fifth straight week of gains, with demand growth seen outstripping supply on bets that OPEC Plus producers will be cautious in returning more output to the market from August. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 8 cents to $73.38 a barrel, headed for a 2.4% gain for the week. Brent crude futures climbed 7 cents to $75.63 a barrel, headed for a 2.9% jump for the week. Both benchmark contracts hit their highest since October 2018 on Thursday. All eyes are on the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Russia and allies, together called OPEC Plus, who are due to meet on July 1 to discuss further easing of their output cuts from August. On the demand side, the key factors OPEC Plus will have to consider are strong growth in the United States, Europe, and China, bolstered by vaccine rollouts and economies reopening, offset by rising COVID-19 cases and outbreaks in other locations.
And back here, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council says Nigeria could improve the employment rate as well as earn up to $16 billion yearly by outsourcing digital skills. This is according to the Executive Secretary of the NEPC, Mr. Olusegun Awolowo. It could be made possible by supporting skills acquisition and adequately financing MSMEs. Mr. Awolowo stated this during a national discourse on MSMEs. Meanwhile, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who was represented by the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, states that the federal government has introduced arrangements in the development financing institutions to de-risk lending to MSMEs. Do take a listen.
The National MSME Discourse is one of the activities lined up to commemorate the MSME Week.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Industry giants are gathered to deliberate on improvements that could be made to boost the impact of micro, small and medium enterprises, especially having been hit the hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic.
According to the World Economic Forum, 97 million new jobs will be created by 2025, out of which 80% will be outsourced. By training our graduates in these high-in-demand skills, Nigeria could potentially be earning some $16 billion yearly from outsourcing of digital skills.
It is equally important to mention the National Enterprise Development Program, NEDEP, which has mapped out strategies for the coordination of the delivery of enterprises development in the country.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who is the special guest, is represented by the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment.
We have introduced arrangements in our development finance institutions to de-risk lending to MSMEs. Similarly, we have exempted small businesses with a turnover of less than 20 million from tax, while those with a turnover of less than 100 million now benefit from a one-third reduction in the corporate income tax rate from 30% to 20%.
The conversation breaks into two sessions to look at financing the Nigerian MSME and facilitating as well as growing a sustainable MSME space.
Working with the Bankers Committee, what we've done is to create or put in place a national microfinance bank. And that national microfinance bank is going to exist in all the 774 local governments of the country.
All borrowings from Bank of Industry now are either at 8% based on the money of Bank of Industry or 5% based on the monies that we manage for central bank.
When there's a structure and when there's a process that allows flexibility for any small enterprise, it makes them to be able to tackle challenges when they come and, of course, use scalable solutions to solve the problem.
Nigeria's MSMEs account for 96% of the total number of businesses in the country and contribute about 50% to the national GDP.
In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday inaugurated the National Steering Committee of the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy to be chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. This is in line with his commitment towards lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years with a well-researched framework for implementation and funding. Poverty has been identified as Nigeria's major challenge, fueling insecurity in the country. The question in the minds of many is, can 100 million Nigerians really be lifted out of poverty in 10 years? And how well can these strategies be employed to achieve this target? Let's talk to a development economist, Mr. Odilim Ewebara. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ewebara. Good morning.
Thank you for having me, Shimeze.
So
pleasure.
When you first heard this administration talk about lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years, what came to your mind?
Chimeze, I don't know where to start, but I think at the end of the day, it's a big dream. I can also dream to create a job for all Africans. The problem is, how do you do it? Committees don't solve problems, especially solve problems like creating jobs, problems like reducing unemployment rates, and of course, anything is possible, but you have to be able to show how you achieve your goals. Yes, America did it in 1930, between 1933 and 1940. China did it between 1980 and 2005. India is doing it. Nigeria can do it. The problem is that the system is anti-development, is pro-poverty, and is highly corrupt that I don't know how you want to achieve it. But be it as it may, I'm ready to discuss this matter as long as we can, because there are so many things we have to look at that have been impeded Nigeria's economic development, and it has pushed so many Nigerians into the unemployment market and dragged so many Nigerians into the poverty lane, if I can use that word. Thank you.
All right, but in January 2021, the president directed the Presidential Economic Advisory Council to articulate, what will lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. And that gave rise to the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy, whose, steering committee was inaugurated this week. First, what do you make of this poverty reduction strategy, and what do you hope to see the steering committee do?
First and foremost, let me make it clear here that I have stopped advising government through the media, because government must pay me if government wants to appreciate my contributions. I've stopped that. I will never, ever, and no matter how much I love this country, I've stopped giving free advice. What I think we have to do as a nation, and I will continue to say that, because out of love I have for this country, is that we must sit down to resolve security problem. We must sit down as a nation. There's no two ways about it. We must sit down to resolve security problem. That is. And the only way you can resolve security problem is to also engage the youth. And also allow the decentralization of economic policy making. Allow regions to emerge. If we don't do these things, we continue to be academic. And I'm tired of being academic. So what I'm saying in essence is that let government be sincere. Come and say, you know what, we cannot solve this problem, because we need inputs of all Nigerians. We need to democratize the way we deal with the public policy. Let all Nigerians come up. Let's build a modern economy. But you cannot sit down in Abuja and just put together people who don't even know what they're talking about in the first place. You cannot legislate for the young men and women of this country who are there in their 20s, and you in your 70s and your 60s be legislating on how they will develop. It's unbelievable. Look, let me give you an example now. A young Nigerian at the age of 24 is the girl who invented or who developed TikTok and is going viral in the world. And this lady is doing that because she is in California and she has the enabling environment to operate. Let's create the enabling environment for young Nigerians. Let's bring people who are their age so that they talk what they understand. Let these young men be mobilized and sit down together and tell government what they want. Let government stop telling people what the people want when you don't even understand what the people want themselves. I'm sick and tired of Every day, you set up committee, and the committee does not make up the people you are trying to solve their problem. First, I will continue to say we must decentralize this country. Anything that does not factor in the economic centralization and governance decentralization, we can continue talking. Because the center is too big, it's too corrupt. And you continue to say you want to solve a problem. How can you, in all sincerity, lift 100 million out of job? Let's look at agriculture, for example. I am in support of what this government has done in the area of agriculture. I will give them a pass mark. Because when Adesina was Minister of Agriculture, he politicized fertilizer and things like that and value chain. He spoke a lot of grammar without doing anything. But this government came in and fixed the fertilizer problem. But the problem is that the value chain has not been put to the level it will be so that it will absorb the production process, that is the farming process, so that all the farmers are produced will go into the food processing chain and the market. They must do that. And CBN has tried, no doubt about it, but we have not done enough. So I cannot give free advice, but I can, if they consult me, I tell them what I can contribute in terms of helping to improve the value chain, the agri value chain, and also how we can export certain things. For example, I had Awolowo talk about outsourcing. It's a big market on its own. India is benefiting from outsourcing from the US. Why can't we do that? But these things need men and women who understand the frameworks, who can design the framework. But these people sit in Abuja in beautiful offices, drinking eating their suya, if I may say, and then come and go to online and read certain things and put them together and say, this is what the young men and women need. Let's stop this. We must develop this country, and we must stop talking and act. Thank you.
Now, you talked about engaging the youth. That's a very good point. So where do you think we can begin to engage the youth in this regard?
Fantastic question you asked, Chimezie. And let me say two things now. Although I didn't want to consult, but let me, because of the love I have to this country, because charity begins at home. And also, I believe that I benefited from global system where I was trained. And I wanted to give back. So that's why I'm back to Nigeria. And I will not pretend not to give back. You see, one of the things I wanted this government to do is, and if this government does it, you will see the change will be enormous. Let's create what I call presidential entrepreneurship competition and create it in the 6 geopolitical zones, where young men and women will come up with their business plans and their ideas and things like that. And they'll frame them to become bankable. And a group of people will go interact with them and let it become the next football of Nigeria. So that from here, you'll be able to get the best of all these Nigerians and then see those ones government can actually become equity holders. That is one. Two is that a year ago and a year and a half ago, I created what I called the Equity Investment Bank of Nigeria. Because the problem is that the investment side is lacking. And you cannot give people loans because loans are difficult to be repaid. And they come with collateral. And the Equity Investment Bank would have been what government would have used in order to jumpstart small businesses by participating in their businesses by taking equity in those businesses, but also understand the business framework. All these small businesses, put their business on. But you cannot believe it, Chimezie. I presented it to the Ministry of Trade and Investment. They wanted to take it from me. I said no. I presented it to the CBN. CBN people did not even understand what I was talking about because they were thinking it's a fractional reserve banking. And I was explained they could not understand. Now, I'm taking it to the United States of America. It's going to be an African equity investment bank that will be in Silicon Valley. And we'll take it from there. I am ready to help young African men and women who have great ideas to develop them into products and the commercialized products. Thank you.
All right. So the MPRG is proposing the establishment of, private equity fund, the Nigeria Investment and Growth Fund to lead resource mobilization drive and also manage the resources, in a sustainable manner. What is your take on this?
Let's make sure they are not stealing, because my idea has already been somehow secured. But be it as it may, let me tell you what needs to be done. First and foremost, we have the mindset of small business. Unless you understand each small business angle you are developing, you only throw money at people. So what I'm saying in essence is that let them first and foremost assemble those young Nigerians who understand. For example, you go into mobile telecommunications, it's huge. You go into phytomedicine, it's huge. You go into security, which is private security, it is huge. There's so many things. You go into agriculture, food processing, it's huge. Let government ensure that these are the areas private equity fund providers go into, and they understand the intricacies of this business, because it's not enough to provide funding. The problem in Africa and developing countries is to provide funding, but you have to have technical know-how of who you are providing funding for. What is he doing? How do you work with the person from day one to going public? That is a public offering. You must be ready to do that. But government cannot do it, because government is not business-like. Government is partial. Government gives to those who are close to government, maybe members of APC and things like that. They will not give to those who have great ideas. For example, let me give you this, although I'm not trying to blow my trumpet. I have today a patent on all variants of COVID. I have NAFDAC listing over 4 months now. And who is supporting? Nobody. I've gone around. So I've taken it to the United States, and they're already raising funds for me. So how do you encourage Nigerians? That's why I gave you the story of a young Nigerian who is the founder of TikTok. Her name is Drea Okeke, a young girl that is about 25. Is making wave all over the world. Can't we find the people like her and help her? Help them to become like her without migrating to the United States of America.
Okay, now you did mention the issue about, not just talking the talk, but working the talk. Now we know that inadequate implementation and policy inconsistency, yes, is a major challenge we have in Nigeria. We are not asking you to consult for the government, but for the love of the country which you preach, how can we deal with this situation? Policy inconsistency.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess we have lost Mr. Iwebaram there. Well, so Iwebaram is talking basically about the fact that we just have to engage the youth. Exactly. This has to do with the youth. If you're talking about alleviating poverty, the insecurity issue we're talking about here, still has to deal with the youth. Yeah. All right. So, and if you're bringing out policies or you are forming committees or whatever it is, you have to engage those people you are also trying to help. They have to tell you where they need the help from, and then you have to listen to them and not just
creating an enabling environment.
Absolutely, and
giving stipends.
However, we know that forming committees in this country has become, the norm. Really. And at the end of the day, we don't seem to get any tangible result in most cases. But let's just hope. Most times government come up with fantastic ideas and all of that, and that was what I was trying to find out from Mr. Weber. How do we ensure that these policies or programs are well implemented, so it can achieve its aim? I think that's just the major problem. Coming up with policies, coming up with programs, coming up with ideas, I don't think we lack in all of those, but it's implementation of those ideas.
And the political will.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, we take a break, and then when we come back, we look at UNCTAD's World Investment Report, talking about the FDI inflows. Do stay with us. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Well, just before we went on break there, we were talking about federal government poverty alleviation strategies, and we're talking to a development economist, Mr. Odilim Ewebara. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ewebara, for sticking on there. Well, just before we went on break there, I wanted you to talk to us about what you think about policy implementation. I mean, we're not talking about you giving the government advice here, but as a citizen of Nigeria who also loves the country, just as you've always, said, we know that inadequate implementation and policy inconsistency, of course, are the major challenges we have, in implementing some of the policies that we have. How can we deal with this?
This is a beautiful question, but it will be difficult for me to answer it the way you might expect, because implementation must be part of the policy framework at the beginning. So it is when you frame your policy, making implementation take its right position or place. Then when you want to implement, you'll be able to successfully implement. But the problem is that the policy makers are not connected to or with those who will implement those policies. And as I said earlier, the problem in Nigeria is that policy implementation is very partial. For example, now, you design a policy to build a railway from one part of Nigeria to another, without factoring in the economic benefits or losses it will bring. So you discover that at the end of the day, in the process of implementing that policy, you may not get the funding you need because the provider of the funding already knows that that project will fail. So the provider of the funding will ask for enough collateral to reduce his or her risk exposure. But when you are implementing a policy that is democratic, that is people-oriented, you will see people will support it. But people become hostile to the policy because the policy is not pro-people and the policy is actually sectional. So that is my take on this. And I think at the end of the day, implementing policy, you must find people who understand the policy in the first place. And you find people who are passionate to see that the policy itself is implemented successfully. When you do that, and you try to allow the people that have to implement this policy the free will or the free hand to do that. But when you control all steps, the people that will implement the policy, and you politicize it, it ends up not being implemented. And that's what is called policy discontinuity. A new government comes and abandons the policy of another government. Maybe Buhari now said he's going to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. Buhari knows that he's not going to be in government beyond 2023. So how does he want to continue the implementation of his policy, if I thought the policy actually will be implemented, beyond his tenure? These are the things we have to factor in. But let me put this in Chimes here. I think if you go to Dubai and you go to Abu Dhabi, you see the gap. Abu Dhabi produces oil, but Dubai is an entrepreneurial and commercial hub of the United Arab Emirates. They are independent economically. But there's something Dubai is doing that Abu Dhabi is now trying to copy. Dubai believes that business must be separated from religion. That business must be separated from government. And business must be separated from color, whether you are black or white. Business must be business. And they learned that from the United States of America. Why can't we make business be business? Whether it's an Igbo man that has the great idea how to make business function, because that Igbo man will create a lot of jobs for Nigerians and will all be beneficiaries of his great ideas. Or a Yoruba man, or an Hausa man, or a Fulani man. Look at Elon Musk. He came from South Africa, but he's today the second richest man in the United States. And he's the man behind Tesla, electric cars. America did not discriminate him. And look at the young girl I mentioned, that is Drea Okeke. She is from Nigeria. But America did not discriminate him because she's a black and a woman. Let's stop discrimination in business. Let's call business business. And let that be a legislation. Now that they are trying to amend the Constitution, let the Constitutional amendment include forcing government to hands off in business. Allow business to be business and allow government to be government. And allow ethnicity and religion to stay away from business. So that those who want to invest in agriculture, we invest in agriculture anywhere in the country without being afraid that should there be a problem in Nigeria, their investment will be confiscated by a region or something like that.
All right, thank you very much for sharing your time with us on the program today, Mr. Ewebara. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Chimezie. It's my pleasure.
Okay, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in its World Investment Report 2021 indicates that global flows of foreign direct investment have been severely hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the report, in 2020, they fell by 1/3 to $1 trillion, well below the low point reached after the global financial crisis a decade ago. FDI into Africa was said to have been slashed by 16%, with Nigeria recording a slight increase in inflows into the country. To talk more about this with us is the macroeconomist at Chapel Hill, Durham, Michael Ogunremi. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So what's your take on the recent report by UNCTAD on global FDI inflows?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So to start with, I'll say that the released report sort of aligns with, expectations on how global investment, was going to play out. On the global landscape, what we noticed is that, FDI flows dropped, by 35% to $1 trillion. And that is on the back of the fact that across the three major categories of investments, international project finance, cross-border mergers and acquisition, and greenfield project announcements, we saw.
We seem to have lost Michael.
Yes, please, can you hear me now?
All right.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I was saying that one big insight for us is the fact that the slowdown that was recorded, amongst developing economies was much more, lower than what we saw, with the developed economies. And this was on the back of the fact that most of the developing economies, sort of opened up, their economies more quickly than the developed ones, where we saw, more severe cases of the COVID-19 pandemic. So overall, I'd say that yes, the slowdown was expected, and I think that for most developing economies, the performance was a little above expectation.
All right, Michael. Well, but despite the decline in FDI and in Africa, Nigeria saw a slight increase in its inflows. What would you say drove this, considering the insecurity challenges in the country?
Okay, so for Nigeria, quite right, FDI surged marginally from $2.3 trillion to $2.4 trillion in 2020. I think for us, the big driver is the fact that we had some sort of brownfield investment. By brownfield investment, I mean investment that were existing before the pandemic happened. So whilst we did not see as much new investments that would trigger FDI flows into the economy, we had some existing investments that were already initiated prior to COVID-19. And most of these, we saw in the Lekki Free Trade Zone, and this is a very good. This was a very good initiative for the government, because what we've seen so far is that the Lekki Free Trade Zone has been attracting most of the FDIs that has come to this country because of the incentives that are tied around that establishment. Another key driver for us was the fact that the economies have opened up very quickly. The lockdown we had in 2020, did not go beyond, 2-3 months, and then the economy was opened, and then, activities began to pick up gradually. And I think that, these two factors, the early opening up of the economy and, the fact that, we had some brownfield investment in the Lekki Free Trade Zone sort of drove the marginal improvements that we had in investments in FDI in Nigeria.
Now, UNCTAD projects FDI to Africa to grow by only 5% in 2021. What are the mitigating factors, and what would be your outlook for FDI inflows, particularly in Nigeria?
So I would say I'm not surprised. Quite right. We expect that FDI would increase at a very slow rate in 2021. And this is because of the fact that when you look at, factors tied to vaccination, as well as, what exactly is the bias of, Africans towards, the vaccines. I'm not too surprised that, we have this weak growth, being projected by UNCTAD. So to speak to vaccination, what we've seen so far is that, the progress has been largely, diverse across African countries. Whilst you have, countries, like Ghana, countries, like Egypt, going at a very fast rate, to vaccinate, their population. You have some other countries, doing so at a very, very slow rate. And another big concern, for us is the fact that we have a very strong apathy, amongst, Africans towards the COVID vaccine. Now, when you combine both factors together, what you then see is the fact that we may not have a very strong FDI come the end of 2021. And that is why I believe that the UNCTAD had to project, that small, amount of growth in FDI. But in terms of outlook, what we expect is that we would expect that Europe would definitely have a higher increase, in FDI relative to Africa. And again, like I said, this is because of factors like vaccination, factors like apathy to the vaccine. Another key factor to look out for in terms of outlook is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Whilst there has been some sort of stalemate in trying to conclude the entire program, what we can say is if AFTA is able to come on board as early enough, let's say late 2021 or very early 2022, we expect that even if we have a slight increase in FDI in 2021, we can expect some sort of significant increase in 2022. So the points being that AFTA has a very huge role to play in terms of putting Africa to pre-pandemic FDI levels.
All right, Michael, we'll have to leave it there now. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Michael Ogunremi is a macroeconomist at Chapel Hill, Denham. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And for the opening call to the market, we have Will Ibong. Will, equities market, we saw a reversal into the green zone. What happened there?
Good morning, Laddie. What can I say about the market? That's how it is. And it's like a ping-pong game. And it's no surprise that the Nigerian equities market traded with bullish sentiments yesterday. We see that the all-share index rebounded from a 3-day sell-off due to the buying of Boa Cement and Zenith Bank stocks. The benchmark index inched higher by 0.40%, while the value of listed equities gained about 78 billion naira, bringing the equity cap to 19.7881 trillion naira. Of course, this has moderated the month-to-date and the year-to-date losses to about 1.3% and 5.8% respectively. We can see on the activity chart, the turnover was mostly negative. The total volume of trade decreased by about 19.7% to 167.40 million units, while the value traded was 1.82 billion naira, all in 3,256 deals. Zenith Bank still topped the volume and value of deals traded yesterday. But to talk more about the market, we have Kayode Oluyemi, a stockbroker at CSL Securities. Good morning, Kayode. Hello, Coyote. Good morning. I think we lost our caller there. But yes, let's moving on to the sectoral performance. Across the 5 sectors, performance was largely positive as only the insurance index closed in the red. We see that the gains in the industrial goods, banking, and oil and gas consumer boosted the overall market performance. Now over to the unlisted markets, where the NASD securities index and market cap was unchanged at about 2%, following the rebound it made in Wednesday's trading session after having traded in the red zone for 2 consecutive days. The NASD securities index maintained the 756.13 points at 537.747 billion naira. That market cap remained unchanged at that value, while negotiations focused on 4 out of 39 securities. Now we move over. Volume was also up at 4.08 million, while we see value at 78.59 million naira, and all traded in 35 deals. Moving over to the fixed income markets, we have Dumebi Udegbunam here to talk to us about the market, what happened there. Good morning, Dumebi.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning. We see that investors flooded the bond market despite the reduction in rates at the bond auction, actually, on Wednesday. Do you think there will be some headroom left for yields in the secondary market over the next to medium term?
I think for the upturn, the short-term view of yields going into the last few days of the month is still bullish sentiment. Reason being, a lot of participants want to cover their short positions in the market and also take advantage of where we're having rates right now. Though we saw a drop in rates from the previous auction, but still favorable for them. So we see a lot of participants still going long to buy the bills to close the month. However, going into Q3, that is July, where we have a lot of maturities and a lot of inflows, we'll have about 560 billion worth of bond maturing in Q3, July the 15th. So that would also further spoil bullish sentiment for the short-term view.
Oh, thank you. So what do you think will be the outlook for next week? Just give us an idea what it will be like.
Well, for next week, we may see a mixed sentiment. Reason being, this is H1, so a lot of participants might want to close the half of the year with profitable books, and also we may see people buying on the back of the expected maturities for July to more or less bank profits when that time comes. So we'll see mixed sentiment, but more of the bullish side, and also some people selling to take profit to close H1.
Thank you so much, Dumebi, for your insights on the program. That was Dumebi Udegbunam, a fixed income trader at UBA. So, Ladi, that's all we have for you today.
All right. Well, fingers crossed. Let's see how today ends. Thank God it's Friday. Thank you, Will.
Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah. All right. We'll take another quick break. When we come back, we head on to London. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.
Let's see what's happening in London this Friday morning with Juliana. Good morning, Juliana. Well, President Biden's $953 billion infrastructure plan has lifted global market sentiment. How are the markets in London waking up this Friday morning?
Good morning, Chimese. It's a good day in London. The FTSE is in positive territory. Yes. Lots of the stardust that's happened in Wall Street overnight has made its way onto the FTSE All-Share. Though I've got to say, just very briefly, that it's got a lot to do with our own national issues, pretty much all about the green list today, the new countries that have been added onto that. But, of course, the world is talking about this $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal, a big deal, a bipartisan deal that President Joe Biden has managed to get over the line with the help, of course, of Republican senators. There's a big photo opportunity that's doing the rounds now, and you can see all the senators standing behind him. This is potentially the biggest infrastructure plan to have gone through America in decades. It's going to help with the recovery. They already have boasted a very strong Q1 recovery of over 6%. And now this is definitely going to boost them even further. There was lots more that was needed to be done. I think particularly when it comes to schools and climate change, a lot of that stuff has had to have been pulled out, but it's already having a knock-on effect on the commodities markets and oil. All the oil majors are up in London today. Of course, there's going to be a demand to build all these new shiny, glittery things. And of course, that's going to have labour fallout as well. So yes, it's a big, big story here, and it has lifted the all share.
Okay, in other stories, the Competition and Markets Authorities are probing Amazon and Google over concerns they are failing to protect shoppers from fake online reviews. Tell us more about this.
It's a major story, and it's something that's been ongoing for a couple of years. Started off in 2019 when the Competition and Markets Authority, the consumer regulator, started having a look into the activities of reviews on Facebook, Instagram and eBay, finding that so many customers were basically being led astray by bots or algorithms that were allowing fake reviews to appear on products. And of course, people have been buying it, but not knowing whether or not that it's good. I think at that time, Facebook and those companies got a slap on the wrist, but now they're looking at Amazon and they're looking at Google. Amazon reported that last year alone, they took off 200 million fake reviews from their sites before it even got to be viewed by the consumers. But the CMA are looking much closely. They are going to be probing and asking questions to see if these two Silicon Valley tech giants are doing enough to protect their consumers.
All right, thank you very much, Juliana. We hope to get more update from you later in the day. A look at the crypto market now with Ladi. Well, Ladi, just wondering, is Bitcoin moving to that 40K resistance level, or should we say what we're seeing is just a blip?
Well, a lot of analysts believe and traders believe that Bitcoin is actually on the way down. They don't see it actually crossing that 40K, but you know Bitcoin, always ready to surprise the market.
The market,
well, it's a Green Friday, surprisingly. If you remember, most Fridays are normally bloody, but today we have a Green Friday. We have Bitcoin in the green, Ethereum, and a couple of altcoins all in the green this morning. Fear index actually improved from yesterday. Yesterday we had extreme fear at lower than 27 points, but today it's fear at 27 points. So it's still fear anyway. But market cap, $1.38 trillion traded this morning, up about 4.20%. 24-hour volume, 78.10 billion, down 13.17%, traded in the total crypto market. We are seeing volume, dropping in the market. And, when volume drops, it signifies something. Some traders are, not as interested as they were before. Bitcoin dominance is also heading up, 46.66%, up 0.35% this morning. Bitcoin price this morning, 34,442, up 4%. 24-hour volume traded in Bitcoin at 8 a.m., $33.04 billion. Let's bring in Michael Naji now to weigh in. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Laddie, how are you? Happy
I'm fine. Great to have you,
Friday.
Michael. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
We've seen China's, recent ban on mining, chasing, miners overseas. What does that mean for the Bitcoin ecosystem?
It's a couple of things. The magnitude of the move that China recently did by banning Bitcoin will have implications for decades to come. But a lot of it stems from the PBOC, that's the People's Bank of China, basically coming out and saying that they want to take an official stance against cryptocurrencies. So the line of attack that they took was to namely identify transactions being taken place of people trading crypto And the second thing that they're trying to do is also block them. And like you said, when you were alluding to the mining, they're actually trying to take steps. And the rationale is basically environmental reasons, and they're trying to close down mining. But we have seen finally, China's been trying to ban Bitcoin for years now, but finally we've seen an official stance taken by the PBOC, and they're basically saying they don't want Bitcoin. The thing is, this is a geopolitical issue that they will regret eventually down the line, because it will be a $100 trillion asset that they miss on. But the important thing to note is, as these miners go offline in China, a lot of it will move overseas to jurisdictions that is more favorable to them. So in the grand scheme of things, this is good for Bitcoin, because all the mining power isn't located in a region that basically doesn't want Bitcoin. So now you're going to see the mines move to basically Kazakhstan, the U.S., basically jurisdictions that favor Bitcoin. But now the world where all the miners being in China and Bitcoin being what's called 51% attacked, like let's say like a directive from the Chinese Communist Party, that won't happen anymore, because now it's more decentralized. It's now it's now spread over the world. So actually, it's a net benefit. The tail risk of Bitcoin ever being overtaken by like a sole actor, which is the Chinese government, is now taken off the table. So it's actually now more decentralized. But I personally think what it is China loves capital controls. They love to control their economy to a T. And Bitcoin just is completely contrary to that. It's an open monetary system that is beyond their control. And basically what they did with all these other social medias and everything else is they just banned it. And now they're coming for Bitcoin.
Anyway, Ethereum is also in the news today, being championed, as the base protocol for CBDCs. Is this what will, help that narrative of Ethereum flipping Bitcoin at some point?
So right now, Ethereum is the best testing platform for CBDCs. There's just so much documentation. The developers at these central banks can look into the documentation and develop and fork Ethereum and try and make their private blockchain similar to JPM. But that's not to say Ethereum will be the final be all. At the end of the day, this is all experimentation. The only lead that Ethereum has, it's the first one there, and it has the biggest ecosystem. So central banks will take advantage of that. That's not to say that they don't create their own private blockchain that is just a clone of Ethereum. So technically, they don't need Ethereum to survive to make their CBDCs. They can just fork and make a copy of it, and it doesn't really need Ethereum to survive. It's running on their own private node. But for right now, 100%, that definitely does add to the narrative of Ethereum, taking more importance because central banks are looking at it to basically issue their own coins. So it 100% does positively affect the narrative.
Okay, that will be interesting to see, though, because I remember the last bull run was Ethereum, XRP, flipping Ethereum. But now it's BNB. Anyway, Michael, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. There's always these narratives coming, right?
Yeah.
No worries, thank you.
All right, Michael, have a great day. Well, Jimmy, we have a top alt by market cap actually doing well this morning. But the main culprit there, that's the Elon Musk's baby, Doge, up 18% this morning. So, and a couple of other meme coins are also, looking up.
Should we be looking at the Doge coin this weekend? I mean, you said it's quite unusual to see, the market in green on a Friday. So perhaps we should look at Doge, or what's your coin
And a
pick?
couple of other meme coins, because I see a lot of meme coins actually going up this morning. So might be a meme play for the weekend.
Okay, but this is not a financial advice anyway. So if you must play, you just seek financial advice from professionals. All right, thank God it's Friday. That's a wrap on the program. Don't forget to join us by 1:30 p.m. on Business Incorporated. We'll have more updates for you on developments in the world of business. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwago.
And I'm Ladi Williams. Enjoy the weekend.